Hello, this is Yuri with the podcast Moving Sales Professionals. We're here with Ben Cross, the CEO of Glomo, which is the foremost recruitment company in the moving and relocation industry. He is also the host, as you can see behind him, of Love and Relo, which is the voice of relocation and has recorded over 450 interviews in 4 countries. So you can connect with him on LinkedIn, and he's a great guy to follow. I certainly have been. So it's great to have him with us. How you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing amazing, Yuri. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm the one that's thankful. Honestly, it's pleasure. It's great to have you. So let's get to it then. So how did you get started selling in the moving industry?
Literally took the first job I could get, right? So I went to college. I was an English major and I moved to Dallas because I thought there was all this opportunity in Dallas, out of upstate New York. And I got to Dallas and I couldn't find a job. In fact, I was just doing a keynote on this a couple of days ago and I was telling people, uh, technically my first job was selling flashlights door to door in Harry Hines Boulevard, a bad part of town here in Dallas. I got ran off with a shotgun trying to sell a flashlight to a body shop. And I was like, you know what? That lasted about 3 hours. I was like, I gotta stop doing this. I gotta find something else, right?
That
And
sounds like a
so
fun job.
yeah, I'm standing there in a full suit, a college degree full of hope, and a suitcase with a flashlight, steak knives, and an MP3 player. And that's how we had to sell them too. Flashlight, steak knives, MP3 player. And I'm like, life has got to have something else for me. This can't be it, right? And so I quit that job after like 3 hours, and I went back to my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and I said, "Honey, what else you got for me?" And we opened up
Hey,
the
you did something
newspaper.
right.
Yeah, we opened up the newspaper, and in the classified section, I mean, this is 2005, so I guess we were still using newspapers back then. Maybe that's why I couldn't find a job. I'm just using the newspaper.
Hey, that was right around the time I started in the moving industry. That was I started doing it like 2003. So
Yeah,
right
yeah.
around that same
Did you
time.
use the newspaper to find your job?
I might have. I can't recall now. I mean, like I moved to Los Angeles, right? I was still working in a call center environment. I went to American Musical and Dramatic Academy for musical theater for a year. So I was right there in West Hollywood, like right across the street from Capitol Records.
Yeah.
And Hollywood was the first moving company that I worked for. They were based literally in one of those
Wait,
apartments. How a lot of moving
Hollywood
companies
Moving
started.
Company? That was the name of the moving company,
No, no, no. It
Hollywood?
was called LA Movers.
Oh, LA Movers.
LA Movers, right in West Hollywood. Since then, I think they moved to Wilshire, but yeah, like it was right in West Hollywood.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, so for me it was 2005, and in the classified section was a job fair for pods. So the pods, the white containers that they move and
Hmm.
store stuff in. And so I went and I showed up and there was like 40 people like there. I didn't realize like it was like, I don't know. I didn't realize what it was going to be like. And there was 3 tests you had to pass.
Okay.
It was a it was a drug test, it was a knowledge test, and a typing test. My wife and I each failed one of the tests.
I'm not
I
gonna
failed
ask which.
I failed the typing test. She failed the knowledge test. And we both were shocked that we passed the drug test, to be honest with you. And I mean, that's how we got and frankly, they let us take the 2 tests over again because we were like the only kids with college degrees and suits on at the dang, and it was for a call center. It was for a call center job. And so we got these jobs at 23 years old or whatever we were, selling long distance pods, for moving over the phone, and you had, 5.5 minutes. It was your average handle time. So you had to close the deal in 5.5 minutes. You had to hit all your quality metrics and all your disclosures and guidelines and everything. And you had to close at like a 15%, clip on these long distance moves, which had like an average ticket of like, $2,400 or something back then. And it was tough, but I look back on that
Man, that was
and
the year though, 2003, 2005. Man, like I said, I got kicked out of that first job. I got fired because I booked too much.
booked too many moves there.
Yeah, the guy was paying me $8 an hour and he was paying me like 10, $15 for every job I booked. And this was Los
Interesting.
Angeles. It was booming, right? So I was booking anywhere from 10 to 20 jobs each day.
Each
So
day?
each
How are you
day.
doing that over the phone? They were calling
Yeah.
in. They
Yeah,
were just
over the phone.
shooting
And the
fish in
guy
the
was
barrel.
so like he's like he could not believe he had to pay me that much money because you figure I made $80 for just for the hours that I worked. And then on top of that, another 150. I made more money from way more money from the jobs that I booked than from the hours I worked.
That's a good life lesson for everybody. You're not a great salesperson until your boss tries to screw you on your comp plan.
That's
Like
how
that
you
right
know
there.
you made it, right?
That's how you know you made it, when you get screwed on your comp plan. I was talking to the number one sales guy for DHL. He sold $51 million in 1 year because he was doing all this air freight to Afghanistan, like these chartered planes, for the US military. And they tried to screw him on his comp plan. And that's like, that's when you know you made it. And then you talk to every great sales guy who leaves the company, like, why'd you leave? You're so successful. Oh, they try to dick me on the comp plan.
Mm.
And so that's when you know you made. Happened to me when I was in college, man. I was a club promoter in college. I was getting $2 a head. It was $5 at the door. I was getting $2 a head. I was bringing like 700 people in there, and the guy wasn't about to hand some like 21-year-old college kid, $1,400 at the end of the night. So he put
Yeah,
me on, basically he put
trust
me
me,
on
I
salary.
did something similar. So
Yeah.
when I went to my first Massaro event, which was 2018, right? Luis Massaro. So I went to that event and I was there with a guy that was basically he was promoting his CRM, right? So
Okay.
basically I got a free ride, but pushing his CRM from the get-go wasn't working. So I had to change my strategy. So I changed it and I basically said, um, instead of selling CRM first, I said, so I'm Yuri. This is what I do. And this is the CRM that I like. This is the CRM that I prefer. Right. And my job was basically my goal was to bring all these people. So this was before Massaro knew who we were, basically. So we were able to rent like the suite on site at that same hotel that had like a pool inside. It was huge, right?
The
So we
suite
were
had a pool inside the
yes,
suite.
small pool inside of
Damn.
a suite. I mean, it was like an
Where was
outside
this
little
at? Was this in
patio.
Vegas or something?
No, Phoenix,
Phoenix.
Scottsdale, Arizona.
And I was just in Scottsdale like last week. What hotel was it at? Or where was it?
Paradise Valley.
I'm staying at the wrong hotel. I'm at the Marriott, man. I gotta go
We'll
to get
talk
the
about that.
suite
I'll
with the
tell you which one
pool.
it is later. But anyway, so they had that right, and we got this huge suite. By the way, we were just there in October 2019. He obviously saw my name on the thing. That suite was not available to rent for this event. It was
He
not
already had it.
available, man. And as far as we know, there was nobody staying there because we like the guy with the software. He was also there. We were there separate at least this time. And it was not available. You could not get that room for
That's
whatever
when you know
reason.
you're doing something right, when somebody tries to screw you on the next time.
Dude, I got
Exactly.
kicked out of the lobby because I was doing like they tried to they kicked me out from outside of the event, and then they tried to kick me out of the lobby because I guess I was too aggressive handing out business cards and stuff like that. And then but the funny thing is this: so the first time I went, I had one client there, so nobody knew me, right? This time I had like 10, 15 clients there. So people kept on bringing me people. I didn't have to really do anything. So like the assistant manager came to me and he's like, so you can't do this. I'm like, well, can I sit in the lobby? He's like, yeah, you're a guest at the hotel. I'm like, okay. So I sat there and I would just say hello to people as they were passing me. Plus, all these people remember me from last time. So they would come to me and talk to me just off the get-go. It was fun.
How come you never cut him in and said, like, why don't we become the official
He never
CRM or
came
something?
to me. He never came to
Oh
me. I
man.
actually, right, like when I opened my company, I actually reached out to him and I like sent him this big long email and said, "Hey, this is what I'm planning to do. Can we connect?" And then I got this like, BS response from one of his handlers or whoever, basically just blowing me off. And I have respect for the guy. There's nothing. He got his own hustle. I can respect the hustle. You know.
This is funny. That's another great tip, honestly, because I did this too. And I've been doing it ever since, even when I like have money and have a company and everything. But my first time ever going to dispatchers convention, which is a military operations, house of goods operations conference, and it bounces around. This year it'll be in Macon, Georgia. First one I went to was in Virginia Beach, and I was trying to enter in this market. I was trying to break through. I was at 1-800 Pack right at the time, and I was like coming in as an outsider, kind of like yourself, right? And I just had a regular hotel room, but I remember calling my boss and I was like, yo, can I get approved for like $150? He's like, for what? I was like, I'm going to go to the liquor store. I'm going to get a bottle of Jack Daniels. I'm going to get a bottle of Tito's. I'm going to get some Cokes. I'm going to get some tonic. I'm going to get, I'm going to get a couple cases of beer. I'm going to put it in my room, couple bottles of wine, and I'm going to host the after party every night. And as soon as that hotel, everybody's at the hotel bar hanging out, whatever. And then the lights come on about 1:30 in the morning, and everybody's like, oh, what are we doing now? And I'm like, yo, room 1205, room 1205, room 1205, and everybody's like, I guess we're going to room 1205. And then like at first, like one person showed up, like, I thought there was a party here. I was like, oh, just wait. Man, it was crazy, dude. My whole room was so full of people. Security came and knocked twice. They say, if I got to come back a third time, Mr. Cross, I'm kicking you out of the hotel. And then some lady like broke some glass in my room. It made everybody leave after the second time. I wake up in the morning, kind of like, where you like don't really know where you're at. You wake up in the morning. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go to the bathroom. I put my feet on the floor. And it was like the Home Alone moment where you put your feet on the floor and there's glass there, and you're like, what is going on right now? I'm like hungover. There's glass on my carpet. Like, what is my life right now?
You gotta appreciate this, right? So when I was at that first event, right, I'm like, it's my first event. People go inside of the event, so I can't really talk to anybody there on the event, right? So I go to the bathroom, right? The bathroom is at the end of this long hallway that's between the main hall and the event, right? So a long hallway. In the middle of a hallway, there's like a chair and a small table. So I sit down and I catch people making trips from the event to the bathroom, back and forth and back and forth. And I'm like, okay. And I start grabbing them on the way back and basically doing elevator pitches on the way back to the event. I ended up meeting everybody there. All these people, all these years later, still remember me. Some may be annoyed by me, but the point is this. It's like my whole thing was this. If you guys see me hustle like this is me to show you what me and my company can do for you.
This is how hard I'm going to work for you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
This is my work ethic.
But yeah, that's literally what I did. And then, like, some people may think it's annoying, but hey, it's like, look, as a salesperson, any salesperson, they got to be hungry. If they're not hungry, they're not real salespeople. And for that matter, it's not just about that. It's you got to like the chase. You got to love the close, but you got to like the chase.
You got to love you got to love the chase. And I actually, I like to say that you'll never be remembered if you're not willing to be ridiculed. Yeah, you're never going to look smart if you're not willing to look silly.
Absolutely.
You got to be willing to do the thing the other guy's not going to do in life.
I can tell you, we were there this time, and this time it was just me, and I brought my my GM with me. So all these people remember me from all those years ago. They would come and talk to me. I mean, before they wouldn't spend too much time talking to me. Now they actually wanted to talk to me. All these, this guy's still around.
Well,
he must be doing something.
Right? Yeah, that'll be the thing, right? It's like now they say, oh, I remember back when. I remember when you were the guy hanging out outside the bathroom, right?
Right,
it's like,
right.
So, and a lot of those people like they say that too, like wanted nothing to do with you at the time, or would turn up their nose at you or whatever. And now they're like, oh, I knew that guy. I've known that guy forever, whatever. Yeah, I think that's really key. I was always that guy too at the conferences, frankly, that like literally, like I would get laughed out of the room. I mean, I wouldn't get laughed out because I didn't leave, but I would get laughed at in the room by like the president of the association or whatever, right? And
but at least they remembered you.
They remembered you. They knew that like you weren't going anywhere. They ended up respecting you, right? And then you win.
Yeah, at the end, you're the last guy standing, so to speak. But getting back to you, because I honestly, I prefer to hear you guys talk. I try not to talk this much, but you and I, we have a dynamic. It's cool. It works.
Yeah, it's fun.
But so you've sold B2C, B2B, B2G in the moving industry, which I don't even know what B2G is, to be honest.
This is the government. Yeah, the government. Yeah,
the government, right? So which is your favorite and why?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely business to business is my favorite. But I think business to government can be the most lucrative. Government contracts are usually measured in the millions, right? Like consumer deals are measured in the thousands. Business deals are measured in the hundreds of thousands. Government deals are usually measured in the millions.
Yeah.
And
they're hard to get though.
They're hard to get. It's a long, I mean, it's a long sales cycle. And I mean, tell me years, right? And if you're a sales rep, who's going to give you that much leash? Who's going to give you that much leeway to pursue places,
that's for sure.
4 or 5 year sales cycle, right? The sales cycle on a consumer move is, a week, a day. If you're talking to Yuri, a week though, right? It's a year if you're doing business to business, national accounts, stuff like that. Maybe a couple years, it could be 4, 5 more years if you're talking about government. So, because you have these massive procurement cycles, and there's fewer buyers too, right? There's fewer agencies and fewer, like the whole federal government procures basically under the GSA contract. The entire military has one contract, and actually they now just award it to one provider, right? So, and we can get into that if you want, but I would say definitely business to business. That's really my bread and butter. The relocation industry, the managed relocation industry, selling to Fortune 2000 clients and helping them relocate their employees and their household goods throughout the United States, throughout the world. That to me is my wheelhouse. I absolutely love it. I love it because the relationships I've developed are amazing. The type of people you're dealing with. Like, so when you sell to the government, those people aren't very fun. I mean, they're just not. They're not fun. They don't hang out. They can't accept gifts more than $25. So you're never going to a nice restaurant. They're not cool, fun people, generally speaking. Sorry, my apologies to my government.
The per diem just sucks.
Yeah, it's just they're not, the corporate folks are intellectually curious. They are diverse, culturally diverse. They are high empathy people. They are fun people. They're smart. They're just good people to hang around with, right?
Whereas they're interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, consumers, you go into that house, you don't know what so that you open that door, you don't know what you're going to see, right? It's sometimes it's rough, right? So I mean, yeah, B2B is definitely where I like to play for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of where I graduated to at this point, right?
Did you? Yeah. Yeah. I tell people all the time, like, honestly, next to being like an athlete or an entertainer, the national account executive gig is one of the best jobs in the world. It really is. I've taken this job and I've gone to Spain. I've gone to the UK, Canada, all on the company's dime. Stayed at the nicest hotel, maybe not as nice as the hotels you stay at, apparently, but pretty nice hotels.
That was the one case scenario. I'll tell you about it later.
had some amazing meals. You get to go to these conferences. You're VIP. You're doing all this stuff. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Like when I was the salesman for the moving companies, right? I was doing B2C basically. Once I had my own company, now I'm doing B2. My people are doing B2C, but I'm doing B2B because obviously I'm pitching the moving companies to become my clients.
Yes, exactly. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's fun. Also, in your situation, you're probably dealing with entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are even more fun because they're just crazy.
Well, if you get the ones that are open to things, yes. The problem is that sometimes you get people that are not willing to try new things, and that can be problematic at times, especially when they want the results, but they're not willing to be creative to get the results. And sometimes, especially when we're in such a narrow niche, you need to do it. I talk about that a lot. I talk about the need for creativity a lot and finding different streams of revenue and coming up with things that other people are not doing, something that would attract you customer. I mean, obviously there's a level of risk involved, but if you don't try it, you're not going to get anywhere. Staying put is not an option.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving companies, especially older moving companies, especially van lines, the traditional van lines, where their MO typically I found is to try to do more with less. And that engenders a cycle of disinvestment in your business. And what happens is you begin circling the drain. And then what do you do again when you start circling the drain? You cut costs even more, right? And so now you're just perpetually disinvesting in your business. And of course, what do you get? You get what you give, right? It takes money to make money. When you stop the flow of investment, you start making less and less. And then as time goes on, you have more and more family members involved in the business, more and more mouths to feed, more and more people taking a cut out of the business. And what used to be a very profitable, very well-off lifestyle business turns into a very scarce mindset business with a lot of entitlement and a lot of nepotism. And it's really unfortunate.
Very true. So what you were talking about B2G, right? So what are some of the major changes happening in the government moving arena, would you say?
Yeah, it's crazy right now. This is the craziest time ever in the government moving world. And a lot of the people that might listen to your podcast probably like, okay, what does that got to do with me? I'll tell you. The government controls $2.5–3 billion of moving spend each year. The United States military, I shouldn't say the government, the United States military, the Department of Defense, which is the largest single line item of the federal government's budget, controls about $2.5–3 billion of moving spend annually worldwide. Let's sink in, right? $2.5 billion. A lot of people estimate the moving industry is about $12 billion business, give or take. I mean, massive amount, massive slice of the pie. And they just awarded that business to a sole source. It was called the GHC, the Global Household Goods Contract. It's been awarded, and it's been contested numerous times, but it's going to happen. The horse is out of the barn.
The Halliburton of the moving industry. Here we are.
Yeah, well, close, right? KBR, which is a Halliburton-esque kind of big-time government contractor, is partnered with Serva, which is North American and Allied Van Lines, which is also partnered with Tier 1, which is one of the largest managers of military household goods, and probably managed over 100,000 moves a year, 150, I don't know, a lot, massive slice of the pie. And they created a new entity called Home Safe Alliance. And Home Safe won this bid over Unigroup, over Mayflower, United, Atlas. I mean, they were all in it and they won. And so now they're going to get all those moves. And the reason that's important to Joe Consumer Mover out there in LA is that's the largest domino in the moving industry. And so when that domino falls and that happens and all that moving volume goes from over here to over here, then that means it creates a displacement of all the moves that these people were doing that won, and it creates a vacuum of all of the moves that they were doing. So it means that now all the corporate moves that, because this is like kind of the pecking order, like there's like government, corporate, COD, consumer. And so now the government, the corporate moves are going to move. And then the corporate move, new people are going to be having to do the corporate moves because they're going to be searching for capacity. And that means then that new people are going to have to do consumer moves too. So my point is, it's going to create this major tidal wave of capacity change. And
right, so you're going to have different providers potentially being able to go to the top where they've never been before, basically.
Yes. And a lot of people that had a lot of moves before that aren't going to have a lot of moves now.
Right, because they're going to lose the government part.
Yeah. So other van lines that have been doing a ton of government business before are now looking, okay, how do we do more logistics? You're going to see that. You're going to see some major brands start to say, okay, we're going to go real heavy into, logistics business. So you're going to see a lot of companies that didn't really care for certain types of business, all of a sudden starting to make that a central strategy focus. So I would say, if you're a salesperson out there and you're listening to this, I would say expect new competitors where you didn't see competitors before. But I would also say expect major opportunity in corporate business, in consumer business, which is great for consumer salespeople out there. I would say expect a lot more competition in the logistics of, last mile delivery business. If you do that, expect more competition in the office business. That'd be my prediction for the next couple of years.
That's cool. That's cool. I've talked to a lot of office movers lately, so yeah, it's a good thing for them to hear. So how, well, you already addressed the corporate and consumer side of business, basically.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to moving companies out there now or to new entrants to the market?
I would say that you always need to be looking at ways to reinvent yourself. Now, that's not saying lose track of what you do. That's not saying like abandon good core business for yourself. I was talking to an entrepreneur this week, and he's like, keep first things first. Keep your primary focus, but always be tinkering with something else on the side and testing, taste and see what's going on out there. And some areas that I look at that the traditional players have not done well, where we've allowed other people to come into our industry and kind of take share and provide services to our customers. When I look at like things like maid service, handyman service, hanging televisions, things that we would outsource to a third party services company, shipping cars, which we would outsource to an auto carrier, all that kind of stuff, I would say is like, that's your customer. You already have that customer. Why not find a way to keep that revenue in, and also create a value proposition and a go-to-market strategy that really can't be competed with, that can't be compared to. If I look at, when I go to the International Association of Movers conference every year, right? And we're big partners with them. We've been going, helping them to plan their conference for the last 3 years. I've been going for over 10 years, and I would highly recommend to anyone out there who's looking at growing their business to go to the International Association of Movers conference. Quick plug. It's in Toronto, October 9th through the 12th. It's going to be awesome. A lot of US companies there, but there are also
I just might go this year. We'll see.
Yeah, there is also companies from 120, 130 different countries. But when you go there and you start talking to moving companies from around the world, you realize, holy crap, these guys do a lot more than just moving. If you're in Germany, you're taking the freaking carpentry with you. You're taking like the cabinetry with you. If you're in India, you're providing destination services, and immigration support for folks who are coming into the country, right? You're helping them go get their driver's license. You're helping them go to the consulate and get their immigration paperwork done. Like you're helping them go find schools if they're from another country, right? If you're in different, there is, I'm not sure if your listeners understand what the third party services industry is.
Yeah.
But here in the United States, there's a whole industry of people called third party services who do all the stuff that movers don't want to do, right? Creating that slab from the pool table, disconnecting the water from the ice maker in the refrigerator, all sorts of stuff like that, right? All the stuff that movers don't want to do is say, oh, I don't want to have liability. We're going to third party it out, right? That third party services industry does not even exist outside of the United States. It literally doesn't exist. And that didn't dawn on me until I had a national account move coming out of Monterrey, Mexico for a VIP. And he wanted his, actually was going into Monterrey, Mexico, and he wanted his refrigerator connected to the water line. And I couldn't find a third party services company to reconnect it. We had someone take it apart here in the US, but when he got to Monterey, he couldn't get it reconnected again. And I couldn't find, I called all the big boys. I couldn't find anybody that would do it. And I realized, holy crap, like what is that about? They don't do it. Same with auto shipping. A lot of these companies that do auto shipping here in the US, they won't ship it overseas because all the other countries, all the movers there, they all do that stuff already. So we could really learn quite a bit from how movers in other countries do things. In Japan, the movers are such craftsmen in Japan and many other countries overseas. Like they do such a phenomenal job. I don't know if you've ever seen videos of Japanese movers on YouTube.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, they're
And
like,
so now I'm gonna have to look.
you got, yeah, it's like mover porn. It's just insane. Like, it's so wild the way that they pack things, the way that they wrap things, the way that they're so efficient. I mean, so we have so much we could learn from other countries in the way that they do moving. So I would just say, like, continue to think about how much more stuff I can sell to my customers instead of like, what can I take off my plate? How can I not do stuff for my customer? I think a lot of movers, especially older movers, are always thinking about all the things I don't want to get into. I don't want to do. This isn't my business. I need to get out of this. I need to carve that out for liability reasons or complexity reasons or whatever. And instead, we need to say, how do we add more value to our customer and then be able to increase our prices commensurately?
Right. Because if you're able to offer more services, you're able to charge more. That goes hand in hand.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Totally. And I don't think there's as much price pressure in the moving business as we like to think there is. I think all these, a lot of moving and a lot of salespeople out there, they're probably listening to this, are probably going to shoot me for it. Probably get a lot of hate mail or something about this. But there's
Well,
only
considering
price,
the good ones work for me.
there's only price pressure out there if we're selling a product or service that's like the same as everyone else is selling. If we're commoditized, then yes, there's price pressure like crazy. But if we're not, if we're more of a boutique, if we're more of a crafts industry, if we're more of a, yeah, I think we need to think differently about what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we, like, for example, you never, when you're booking a job, a local move, you want to use the word cheap. You want to use the word less expensive, right? You're saying the same thing, but when you say the word cheap, you're gonna attract the customers that you don't want to attract.
Yeah.
And likewise, if the price is high, you're selling quality. You're not talking about the price as the pressure point. You're saying quality, professionalism, all these additional things like what you're talking about now, all these additional things that you could be adding to your service that make them want to choose you, want to pay more, because
Right.
now they don't have to go to a third party. They don't have to get somebody to come in and reconnect their fridge. They don't have to get somebody else to whatever. It's all done in one place. Yeah, I always wondered about that. Some of the companies that choose to send all these services out versus keeping them in. And yeah, so what if they're going to have to hire a couple of people to work for their company to do these extra things? They're going to win in the end.
Yeah, I agree. Keep that customer in-house, keep them in your ecosystem, and yeah, instead of talking in terms of, less expensive, talk in terms of being a premium service provider.
Yeah.
I went and met with a moving company here in Dallas. There's this moving company that only does high-end luxury homes. I mean, very wealthy individuals, athletes, and you're talking about a ton of artwork, a ton of chandeliers. In fact, if you go into their warehouse, it's the wildest thing. I've never seen anything like it. You go into their warehouse, you walk around, hanging from the ceiling of their warehouse is all chandeliers.
Wow.
They hang all the chandeliers. I'd never heard of such a thing. I mean, where I'm from, they wrap that stuff and they put it in a big ass box, or they crate it,
Right.
and just use a lot more material around it, but they just crate it. And they're like, I'm like, why are they hanging from? He's like, well, where else should they be? He's like, it's the safest place for them. I'm like, yeah, I guess it is. I mean, just thinking differently like that,
Yeah, you always like, no matter what you do, you got to think outside the box all the time. And with moving and the people we have to move sometimes, like you were talking about government stuff. One of the companies that I used to work for myself, we did a lot of government moves through Cartwright, and
Oh yeah, sure.
it was crazy because you'd get this admiral or somebody that wants your guys there at 5 in the morning, and he thinks he's gonna run them like he would his sailors, and it's just insane. And it's
Yeah.
so it's like you gotta think outside the box, and sometimes you gotta cut some of these people down. And it's like, look, these guys are not, enlisted servicemen, and they're not going to be working 24 hours because you were, former Navy SEAL. They're not going to do that. So
Yeah. Well, fortunately too, on the government side, there's regulations, right? So you go point back to the tender of service, and you can point back to the, the 50-page document that outlines the way that movies are supposed to work, and you can say, listen, sir, ma'am, respectfully, we don't report to you. We abide by the contract the U.S. government has with our firm,
Right.
which is here, and it says we get breaks every 2 hours, and we're going to show up between 8 and 10, and stuff
Right.
like that, right? Yeah, totally. I remember I had a mover I was working with. I had a mover out of DC, and I was so impressed with the way this guy ran his operations. And what was cool
Who?
about this guy, his name was Kenny Joshua.
Do you remember the
And
name of the company?
it was no, I don't.
Okay.
No, I don't.
I'm just in that area, so I know a lot of people.
And so I hired him. I actually hired him because I love the way he ran his business. So I hired him to work for me. And he would give his crew like these like flight vests, I guess you would call them, like these like thin mesh kind of, but these like vests that like with pockets and stuff. And he had a radio. Everybody had a radio on their thing, And so you're in like a fifth story or sixth story or eighth or whatever, you're in a high rise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I would lose so much time from the guys going down to the truck to get a tool or something, or have to go check on something. I'd lose so much elevator time that I just started radio, and we all had radio. So we would radio down to the truck, or whatever. We communicate, so we didn't have to walk all the way down and lose time because he's paying guys hourly,
Right.
And I just thought that was so brilliant,
It is. It's thoughtful.
Yeah, super.
It's interesting
thoughtful. He's using drawstrings on his shorts, because he don't want belts because belts scratch furniture, or tear upholstery, There's just a way that the young man thought about the business was just incredible. So anyway, I just think there's a lot of room to think differently about the business. That's why people should listen to your podcast, because that's where you get ideas from, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal, because it's not for me to talk about what I do. Yeah, sure. I promote myself, of course I do, but at the same time, it's more about having guys like you, Ben. You brought up so many great ideas, and just in general, it's always it's a blessing with the amount of the people that I would be able to bring onto the show, and it's just great. And thank you very much once again for taking your time with us today. It's awesome. I appreciate it. And as we always say, the world moves on its own, so let the professionals move yours for you. Thank you once again very much for joining our podcast. Continue tuning in, like and subscribe. And of course, we're going to have some links for Love and Relo. Love and subscribe to Ben's podcast. And in general, he's had some very, very interesting people on, and I'm going to certainly continue tuning in. So thank you very much for taking your time with us and for being on our podcast. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you.